Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is King David the Vessel, and you are right here checking out the illest lines, y'all. Let's go.
Hey, what's good, everybody? This is your B fam, Daniel Anthony, and this is the Illest Lines, where we talk about our favorite lines from certain songs because bars matter. So check this out. I got a gentleman with me by the name of King David the Vessel. He hails from Chicago, Illinois, and we're going to talk about his new single called Safe. Man, I definitely appreciate you being on here with me, man.
No, thank you for having me. It's an honor, man.
Most definitely, most definitely. So I'll say welcome to the Illest Lines, man. One of the things that I like to do on here is make sure that, we talk about as much of the music as possible, but I also like to dig into, people's lives a little bit because I'm always, I don't know about you, but I came from the era where, we used to look through the liner notes and, try to see like who did what,
Read the
whether it
J
was the
card.
writing.
Yeah,
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 man.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so finding out like the pieces, the bits and pieces of the artist are always like a beautiful thing, because then you get a sense of like where not just where they came from, but like kind of what created them to
Mm,
be what they are. You know what I'm saying?
that matters. I think that
Yeah, oh,
matters.
most definitely, most definitely. So you from Chicago, you said, right?
Yeah, born and raised. Yep.
Nice. Okay, so you're still there now then?
Yeah, just outskirts,
Okay,
about 15 minutes outside the city. I can drive down the street, but yeah, yep, still here.
got you, got you. How much of being in Chicago, how much did Chicago itself kind of influence your whole style?
That's a great question, actually, because honestly, it really depends on where you grow up in Chicago. You could have a
Mm.
totally, so I'm like born and raised South Side. All right. But if
Oh,
you're
okay.
somebody who is on the west side of Chicago,
Mhm.
then your whole music outlook and, if you're somebody who does music, the style that you'll probably kind of adhere to will maybe be completely different. So,
Got you.
me being a South Sider, um, and just kind of coming up in the era that I did, I think really contributed a lot. And then too,
Mhm.
going to the high school that I went to, which was mixed. And so having to learn how to deal with kind of a different demographic. So it wasn't just a bunch of people
Right,
that looked
right.
like me,
Oh, okay.
contributed to kind of, some of the things that you get into. So that had a lot to
Right.
do with style wise, how things
Oh,
kind of
okay.
turned out the way they did.
Got you. Got you. So then, at what point could you say that you knew there was a that point where you got caught up in music itself?
Um, So I'm a preacher's kid,
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm kind of like a choir kid as well. So
Got
growing up, my dad's side of the family, we all went to church together. And
you.
so
Okay.
my great grandmother was the pianist and the organist. My grandmother was a choir director. And then,
Oh,
my
nice.
dad, my mom, aunt, uncle, they were all in the choir. Um,
Wow.
my great
All in the family
grandfather
church.
played the violin. Yeah, so this is, you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
from an early age,
Wow.
um, it's really always been about music. Um,
Mhm.
on my mom's side, um, one of my uncles was a world renowned bassist, and the other
Oh,
one
okay.
is a drummer. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah, yeah.
this,
Got you.
it's been just music, really
Hmm.
for as long as I can remember, church and
Wow.
music, and it was just kind of like all a part of.
Wow, wow. That answers one of my other questions then. So were you I'm still gonna ask it though. So were
Cool.
you ever like interested in and influenced by anything outside of the church?
Unfortunately, so, and I do say that, I have to say unfortunately,
Yeah.
because, and no disrespect to anybody when I say this,
Right.
but I grew up in a Baptist church and in a Baptist household. And so
Gotcha.
to that end, and the kind of the reason that I preface that whole my little disclaimer, no disrespect,
Right, right.
is that when it comes down to things in regards to like holiness and things of that nature, in terms of knowing how to separate yourself from
Right.
secular things. That wasn't necessarily something that was taught. And so in that
Right, right.
same household, you know, my dad still got Earth, Wind and Fire on 33
Right.
and a third. So he's got the wax records, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay.
Barry White 8 tracks. So this is stuff
Ooh, the eight
that I
tracks.
grew up on. Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So Ohio players, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Actual records. But then
Right.
there's Walter Hawkins on
Mm.
LP as well. And then there's
Right,
Sandy
right.
Patty on LP as well. And there's Larnell
Mm-hmm.
Harris on LP as well. And again,
Right.
I'm throwing names out that a lot of people probably won't even know who they are, but these
Right,
are kind
right.
of more traditional um, gospel artists that I heard
Mm-hmm.
growing up. Now, of course, a lot of people don't know who, you know, Walter Hawkins, you know, and the Love Fellowship Choir and all of those types of
Yeah.
things. But so my household was kind of made up of those two different dynamics. We couldn't watch TV
Got
after
you.
church until
Right,
like
right.
6 o'clock on Sunday, but we
Huh.
would sit around and we would listen to Dusty's. So
Right, right.
you know, we listening to Herb Kent on the
Yeah.
radio, you know, play old school stuff that my folks grew up on.
Right,
So
right.
unfortunately, that dynamic. So yeah, influence
Mm.
wise, you know, songs in the key of life, I heard that I like
Yeah.
on wax. You know what I'm saying? It
Right.
played
Same
in my
here.
house, so I was familiar with it. It was a double
Right.
album. People weren't putting those
Mm.
out back then.
Right.
But yeah, so yeah, I've had those types of influences, and then later the other stuff. You know, the
Right.
artists, and then kind of that rap thing that kind of engulfed me and pulled me into that side of things.
Right, right. Yeah, I noticed that actually was pretty prevalent. Not to say that I was surprised because I'm not gonna lie. Before I actually dug into your music, I assumed after listening to you guys talk on For the Goat, shout out to BRM.
Shout out, bro. Yep.
We not we, but I ended up finding your other music, and I was like, oh, okay, so you did a pretty good amount of rap as well as singing, and that was kind of nice to hear because there's only a few friends of mine that I know that I can actually do that as well. And so whenever I hear somebody else do it, it's like, okay, so you don't just do one thing. Okay, that's nice. That's nice.
Yeah,
you know,
it takes a while to, you know, kind of you work it out, man. You keep growing.
right?
You know what I mean? But
Definitely.
um, that's really kind of all about getting into the space that ultimately,
Yeah.
you know, God wants you to operate and move in. So you kind of just
Right.
move from there. Yeah.
Right, right, exactly, and also too, like where you feel that he's touching you in your spirit, because that one thing, that one song that you try to write, your attempt at it may be purposely to try to sing, but God's pulling you another way, and it's
Something
like,
else. Yep.
yeah, how
Exactly.
can you ignore that? Yeah,
Yeah.
most definitely. And real quick, I wanted to go to actually kind of go touch base on your name because when I read that your real name, if you don't mind me saying, is David Eagles, I was like, that's
Yeah.
that's actually a pretty dope name. Like if you went by that by itself. So where did King David the Vessel come from?
So I'll be honest with you, and I give you a little bit more backstory to it because this is something
Excuse
that
me.
we also talked about on For the Goat. Shout out
Mhm.
to again BRM and Street for having me on.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Um,
yes.
so when I really got serious and I rededicated my life to the Lord back in 2001,
Mhm.
um, I had just about a month prior had finally released a solo project as a secular artist.
Oh,
And
okay.
so to jump from there to being like, man,
Mm.
listen, right now, it's not a good time to try to be out here and promote other things. I need to
Right,
get my
right.
life right with the Lord. And so at that point in time, um, I had decided within myself to put music down altogether.
Oh, wow.
I wanted to, after coming to, you know, God tugging on those heartstrings, and you realize, like, hey, I'm not doing what I was created for. Um,
Right.
I wanted to delve into that. And I wanted to get to know
Mm.
God, and I wanted to build a
Right.
real relationship. I wanted to
Yeah.
learn how to hear God's voice, you know, things that I had not experienced or even been told up to that point were something that I could experience in salvation. So I wanted to delve into that. So I said, okay, you know what?
Right.
I'm going to sit music down, like, period, altogether.
Mm.
And God wouldn't let me do it. And so the more that
Wow.
I would spend time reading and praying and fasting and doing those
Mhm.
types of things, the Lord would start giving me songs. Now, I never had any intention of putting those songs out,
Mm.
but I would always tag them,
Right,
written
right.
by God the Father, Christ the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and then I
Yeah,
would put
yeah.
my name on it as a co-author, and it would just
Right.
be like KD, and then 2002 because that's when I started writing those songs. So the
Got
further
you.
we go along and get into it,
Mhm.
God started dealing with me, King David, the vessel. And so the King David part, of course, my name, birth name, like you mentioned, David,
Right, right.
but it denotes the fact that we are royalty. That's who we are in Christ. That's
Indeed.
part of our new identity.
Right.
But then also the vessel part is important because ultimately we're nothing aside from and apart from him. And so learning how to balance out
Indeed.
that identity. If I'm too high over here and I think I need to be walking around and ordering people around, then you're missing it. If
Right.
I'm making myself lower than I'm supposed to be in Christ, then you're missing that as well. So
Right.
royal servant. That's who we are. And so
Mhm.
that's kind of where King David the vessel comes from.
Man. Man, I feel you on that though. But so then at what point or what was going on in your life, if you don't mind touching on that, where you felt like where you did feel like it was something that you couldn't do? Like what was causing you to feel that you had to leave music alone?
It had been such a big part of my makeup for so many years. So
Mhm.
like I started recording okay, so we'll go back because you will probably get into this
Yeah.
later, but I had been doing it for so long.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes certain things become idols to us.
Mm.
And we may not recognize it because to us
Man.
it's just something that we do.
Right.
But for
Comes so
me,
natural. Right.
I was willing to throw everything away because all I wanted in that moment was like I had done that. I had been there.
Mm.
I had gone through all of that stuff. And I'm like, okay, this didn't get me to where ultimately I thought
Right.
it would go. I didn't realize that it was the Lord saying, hey, in my mercy, I'm gonna make sure that none of this stuff blows up.
Mm.
Because if I allowed that,
Right.
you wouldn't get to the place that I'm trying to get you to.
Right.
But that desire was like, man, I need to sit this down and get this out of the way so that I make sure that I don't miss what God is trying to do in my life. So that was really
Yeah.
the big deal in terms of me being like, once a buddy of mine came over, and the same guy who brought me to the ministry, same ministry that I'm at right now.
Right.
And this was the guy that I went to high school with, the guy I used to kind
Mm.
of, pull me, bring me along.
Mm.
And who really got me into doing music on the Christian side because he
Wow.
asked me to help out with a project and we kind of went from
Yeah.
there.
Wow.
Once
All
he
right.
came through and he was like, hey, you got to get rid of these CDs that you have.
Mm.
So I'm sitting there. I got like Jay-Z Blueprint CD. I got
Right, right.
um it was a movie soundtrack, man. It had like a Leo on it and stuff. Like, hey,
Mhm.
if you really want to grow in your
Wow.
relationship with the Lord, you gotta remove these other influences.
Mm.
Once, he told me that, and I knew it was God because I didn't put up much of a fight. I'm at this
Right,
place where I'm
right.
just like, yo, I want to get as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And so, man, pushed everything to the side, trashed, the music. And from
Right.
there, it was just like, man, I want what I hear and I want what influences me to come straight from heaven. I don't want to get it from anywhere else.
Mm. Man, I feel you on that. And it's kind of hard once you do kind of get into not even kind of, I would say since you know kind of bred with that music too. Because same thing, Stevie Wonder, pretty much all the ones that you mentioned. We also listen to Average White Band, Al Jarreau, and
Yeah. Oh,
a lot of my dad's stuff. Yeah, a lot of my
yeah.
dad's stuff that he played was more so like on the jazz, like the
Mm,
jazz fusion side.
yeah.
So we grew up with all that as well, but it's kind of hard to let go of something that's been infused in you for so long. You know what I'm saying? Whether you grew up in the household that you grew up in or the household I grew up in.
Right.
Because I didn't come to Christ until '04, and
Mm,
it was one of those things where I just felt like, okay, well, I know why I need to make a change. You
right.
know what I mean? So let me just go ahead and do it. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
the why
Right.
why am I running? You know what I mean?
Mm,
And not to say that it gets any easier, you know what I mean? Because once you start rolling with the Lord and He's like showing you, hey, so check this out. This is what you've been doing.
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, wait a minute, you saw that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
All
And
that.
yeah, and that conviction starts to set in,
Yeah.
but it definitely makes for moments where when you're finally sitting down and you're doing it for Him, it makes for those moments where you know, okay, I know I got to be on the right track because I'm being ministered to right now by
Man,
what God is
yeah.
writing through me.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Man,
That's always the biggest deal for me. Like I can go back and I can listen to stuff
mm,
and it really doesn't matter how old it is, but you go
right,
back and you're like, man, God was on something, with that particular
right,
record. Because it's like, man, you hear, you hear the Holy Spirit, like you said, speaking through you.
right.
And, um, it's good if it ministers to you first.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
I
it's
always
got
say
to
that.
be able
Yeah,
to deal with you. It's got to be able to check you, change you, correct
yeah,
you, comfort you, encourage you. Like it's got to be able to do all of those things
yeah.
before it
Most
hits
definitely.
another set of ears.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I can't tell you how many times I mean, it hasn't been as many times as I would like where when I say that, when the Holy Spirit hits and it's like, oh God, like this song is this is gonna have to be it.
Yeah.
And your expectation is that it's going to do well. You know what I'm saying? And not realizing, wait a minute, just because I felt it that strongly doesn't mean that it's gonna do that well. Doesn't mean that it's gonna, hit numbers like never I've seen before. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
But
right, right.
at the same time, just knowing that you're doing it for a different purpose is what makes it like all worthwhile.
Yeah. I mean,
Most
if one
definitely.
other person gets it, you know what I'm saying? And it
Yeah.
blesses them and God deals with them, the
Hmm.
record is done well. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like just if heaven rejoices over one sinner, that comes back and repents, then why not? The
Yes.
one person that's your
Indeed.
platinum plaque, and people,
Yeah.
especially nowadays, you being cliche, you being churchy,
Right.
preachy, etc.
Right.
But
Right.
it's the truth, because
Hmm.
if we want to really look at things the way that God looks at it in terms of like success and numbers and stuff, I mean,
Hmm.
man, did it minister to the one person that it was intended to, or to the group of people that it was purpose for? We
Yeah.
really have to look at stuff like that.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I think it was D1 who said on Jonathan McReynolds' song that I'd much rather go platinum in heaven.
Man,
That was like one of the illest lines I've ever heard for me.
man.
um, so to kind of go back just a little bit, because you were talking about how you were doing all this in '01 and whatnot, but from what we've seen, at least from what I've seen, your first release was in 2017. Is that correct?
So actually, um, man, I dropped a CD called In So Many Words. Now,
Mm.
everything had moved digitally at this time.
Right,
This was
right, okay.
I put this out in '07, in
Oh, okay.
2007.
Got
And
you.
did a couple of shows and did
Mm,
some stuff with a live band, but
nice.
that was the first full length project that
Got
I
you.
put out, was '07. And then we came back with two mixtapes in
Hmm.
2013.
Oh, okay.
And so yeah, so I joke about it. It's not funny, but I
Right,
joke about
right.
it because it seems like I have a hard time putting out projects, like full projects,
Mm.
sooner than every 2 years. So
Oh,
2013,
got
we
you.
put out two mixtapes. We did one in February and then again in September. And then I put out a project in 2015,
Mm-hmm.
um, called A Hero for the Hurting. And
Oh,
that
okay.
project did really well, but I didn't get it on digital outlets at that time.
Ah,
So I
got
was
you.
running everything from my website. So this has
Right,
been a
right.
process. It's been a
Oh
process.
yeah. So now I want to get into your song "Safe," man.
But there you go, giving me hope. And there you are, giving me peace. And there you are, encouraging faith. When I don't know how bad I need to believe. And here you are, calling my name.
That's the first song of yours that I heard because when they were when you and the rest of the guys were talking the other night last week, as a matter of fact, um, I went straight to it as soon as he mentioned your music. I was like, oh, okay, let me go check it out. That was the first one that I heard, and I'm just like, man, your style to me is like the same type of stuff that I like to do. You know
Mm,
what I mean? I like that. I
yeah,
like the neo soul kind of vibe. I like some
yeah,
stuff that's a little bit more. I guess you can kind of say eccentric. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? There's this little thing. I don't know if it's on your live voice or if it's something that you do, after the fact when you're mixing and whatnot. But like, there's this little ting to your voice that I hear on every record. So is that something that's digitally added, or is that how you really sound? Or
That's that might actually be me.
oh,
Um,
okay,
I kind of have an idea of
yeah,
of what you're talking about. So that might actually be me because over the years you kind of work with different engineers and stuff like that.
right,
So that
right.
might actually be me. That might be
Got you, got you. And part of the reason why I asked too is because like a lot of people thought that Jay Moss didn't sound like that live.
me.
And I don't know if you've ever had a chance to hear him live, but he sounds exactly like the
Yeah,
robot
yeah,
that
yeah,
he
yeah,
sounds
yeah,
on track.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yep,
Most definitely.
absolutely.
But yeah, that song to me is exactly how your write up says about it, about the surrender part of it. And it's I got to tell you, one of my favorite lines from that song was attempted to believe with my eyes, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, if I got any of it
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
There was a couple parts I'm like, wait a minute, I gotta listen to that part again.
Okay.
Um, but attempted to believe with my eyes instead of my heart, taught to stay away from the light when the enemy is in the dark.
Yeah, I think the line
Yeah.
is tempted to believe
Tempted,
with my eyes.
tempted to
Yeah,
believe.
tempted. Yep.
Man. And I have to admit, like that part for me was just one of those lines where it's like, yeah, like that kind of spoke the whole entire song for me at least. So for you, what was the line out of that entire song that made that moment for you a little bit more real than the rest of the song?
Man, that's a great question. I'm gonna be honest. The song, like in and of itself, um, because of kind of how it starts, with been a lot of things in this life.
Yeah.
This, that's me. You know what I'm saying? So,
Mm-hmm.
um, being able to kind of be naked, if you
Mm-hmm.
will, and kind of be open and transparent and talk about what
Yeah.
was, because a lot of times, especially nowadays, we want transparency to be like, this is what I got going on now.
Yeah.
God gonna deal with it, and you gonna deal with it too. No, this
Right.
record was about, listen, this is where I've been, you know,
Mm-hmm.
misused, abused, confused, not, um, and we talk about like abuse isn't sexual abuse, but people
Right.
take advantage of you. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, just so anybody can kind of put themselves in that, but
Yeah.
that's me. So it's not just um, something that sounds good. There's not a
Right.
whole
Right.
lot of rhyme and reason necessarily to the way that Safe is written. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's just really um, it's more like a journal entry, if you will. So
Got you. Got you. You were talking about that part where it says misused and abused. What, and not even what, but have you ever felt like that was you doing that to yourself?
mm. so there are certain instances where even when there are other people involved,
Hmm.
we got to take ownership.
Yeah,
For certain things, man, for allowing things to go on, allowing, people to treat us a
definitely.
certain way, not getting
Hmm.
out when God gives us the way of escape, not,
Man, right?
you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of messes that we create for ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's easy, Adam did it. God said, Adam, what have you done? Adam said, man, Lord, it was this woman
Right,
that
right.
you gave me. You know what I'm
That you
saying?
gave me.
You sent me off. So now I'm blaming Eve
Right,
and I'm
right.
blaming God because
Right, exactly.
he did it to me, but you gave it to me. Then
Exactly,
Eve turned
yeah.
around and blamed the enemy. Well, it was the serpent. This snake
Hmm.
walked up and talked to me and,
Right, right.
got us out of this promise. So, I mean, it's cute and it's cool. And maybe sometimes it helps us sleep better at night to blame
Oh
other
yeah.
people.
Hmm.
But we don't
Sure
grow
does.
if we don't take ownership of certain
Yeah.
things. And so, absolutely. You know, there's been times where I know, like, man, you don't need to be around this person. You don't need to be involved in this situation.
Right.
You could have said no, you know what I'm saying, and you didn't.
Yeah.
Um, plenty of times,
Yeah.
plenty of times. And so,
Definitely.
you know, one of the main people that we have to learn how to forgive is ourselves.
Man. And it's such a hard thing to do, especially when you're sitting in your woe was me moment. You know what I mean? Especially when you're going to God about it. Because, like, you know, you've heard people say before, you know, you can't finesse God. You can't lie to God. You
Man.
can't tell him, well, God, you know, this is what happened, really, you know, when you know good and well it didn't happen the way that you're trying to tell him. So it's like
Yep.
he's sitting there, okay, yeah, I'm just going to let you talk. Kind of like how, I don't know, you got kids?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of those moments, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and let you talk and let you realize the points that you were wrong. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And it's a hard thing for us to do as people because we don't ever want to admit our own sin.
Yeah.
Ever.
True that.
That's part of the reason why a lot of people have strayed away, fallen away, and never even got close to God to begin with because they don't want to admit, you know, because it's a scary thing. It's a scary position to be in. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Because then you're facing your own demons, for lack of a better term. You know?
Yeah. It makes you, so we talk about like responsibility and
Yeah.
accountability. And this is really one of the big things in safe, because the goal behind the record is to establish the understanding that
Right.
even though I was this, or even though I've seen and experienced this,
Mm-hmm.
none of this matters when I'm
Right.
in the will of God, when I have this relationship. And
Right.
so, like you said, a lot of times it's tough in doing this. And that deals with like the shame part. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We messed up. We did something we know we ain't had no business doing.
Right.
How do I reconcile this? Can I even bring this to this person and be honest and be open about it and be
Yeah.
forthright and not try to shift some of the details or make the story
Right.
seem
Right.
a different way? You know what I mean? Because we never
Yeah.
really get the healing or the deliverance when we try to deceive ourselves.
Yeah.
But God is like, yo, I want you to bring it to me. I
Yeah.
want you to come to me. Cast, your cares upon
Your
me. Come
cares
unto
on.
me.
Yes.
Ye that are heavy laden and you tired, man, come so I can give you rest. Part of that giving you rest, though,
Right.
is allowing you to take that stuff off of you. And
Mm-hmm.
so just understanding that God is not like man, having
Oh
that
yeah.
very necessary understanding that God will not treat us like the other people who have done us wrong in our lives,
Right.
helps to build that confidence in being able to take
Definitely.
everything. The old song say, take it to the Lord in prayer, like all of it,
Yeah.
being able to do that. So you're right.
Definitely.
You're right. And, the flesh does that to us, the shame, the guilt. But we're worse off if we don't take it to him than we are in
Yeah.
those moments where we got to, lay it all out and be
Mm-hmm.
exposed and maybe even a little embarrassed. But
Yeah.
it's better to let God deal with it in private than to keep
Yeah.
going like nothing happened. And then the
Right.
next thing you know, you didn't mess around and fell off the stage somewhere because you wouldn't
Right.
let God deal with your issues
Right.
in
Right.
private. It got
Mm-hmm.
kicked over to the public level because God
Yeah.
is very serious, not only about us being where we need to be, but us being where we need to be so that he can use us the way that he desires
Mm-hmm.
to.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Part of the reason why I even asked you that question about that is because I feel like there are times when we get intentional to write something, whether it's because we pick a particular subject or God has just placed that particular subject on our hearts because we know that it's prevalent in the world, or because we know it's prevalent in the church and whatnot. And as we're writing, we think that we're writing about something or someone else. And as soon as we get to that part, it's like, oh man, really, God, this is about me? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
like
yeah,
and then you kind of want to get mad. It's like, really, you're gonna put inside me the stuff that I didn't know was about me, and now I'm pretty much telling everybody this is what I was doing. Thanks a lot. All right,
yeah,
cool. But you can't really be mad. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, well, shoot. These are the best things to sing about, and even in the secular world, you know what I mean. A lot of times you seen people, whether it be, on stage or in the booth somewhere, and if you've ever been a part of anyone else's, recording session that's done stuff like that, they try to tell them, look, you need to get in the deepest, darkest pits of your body,
Mhm.
that, you know what I mean, and it works, but it's like, okay, they're pushing them to that level because they want to get a sale.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah, yeah, yeah,
saying?
yeah.
They
Ultimately, at
don't
the end of
want
the
to
day,
get the
yep,
soul. They want to get the sale.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And that to me is where the difference lies. You know what I'm saying? And because, a lot of times these people, they're doing stuff and they don't realize they're like, God is using these other people to try to get you to wake up for a second so that you
yeah,
could wake up for good.
man,
You know?
yeah,
Man,
absolutely,
it's a trip. It's a trip how God works on things,
man.
man. Most definitely. Um, well, I really appreciated this time, but before I let you go, man, so the last question I want to ask you. So, what would you say is one of the illest lines that you ever heard that made an impact on
Man, um,
you?
that's tough
Yeah.
because you have so much downloaded into you
Oh yeah.
over the years, and I mean, just honestly, I would be exaggerating. You know what I'm saying? Even if I
Yeah.
tried to put a number on it.
Right. Right.
I might, and I'm gonna be honest, man. This is a really tough question for me because yes, I listen to other artists, in the
Right.
space, in the genre. Um, then I listen to a lot more, praise and worship music than I do rap. You know what I'm saying? And I've heard a lot of other things, but just in all honesty, um, the illest line that's ever really made an impact on me, I'm gonna have to throw it back to the word, man.
Mm,
The entire 119th Psalm,
mm.
where David talks about the Bible. He
Right.
talks
Right.
about the Word of God,
Mm.
and what it does, and how it keeps us, how it strengthens us, how it
Right.
cleanses us. That to me, like, it's my favorite. Psalms, for lack of a, and trying to be cliche,
Right.
Psalms is
Right.
my favorite. Just because it captures the entire
Yeah.
Christian experience. You know what I'm saying?
Got you.
Highs, lows,
Got
ups
you.
and downs,
Right. Right.
desperate, panting. You looking at other people being blessed, folks doing wrong, blah blah.
Right.
Like Psalms covers everything,
Mm-hmm.
every single thing that you could think of. But the 119th Psalm, David talks about the word. He talks
Yeah.
about the word, and like he leaves no stone unturned.
Mm.
And for me, being able to read that and read all 176 verses,
Mm.
you know what I'm saying? Like that in and of itself, when you sit down with
Right.
something like
Right.
that impacts you.
I
And
bet.
it doesn't, like I mentioned earlier, like I'm really big, especially like if I'm in the middle of writing a project or something like that. If it's not anything else or anybody else that I have to listen to,
Uh-huh.
I try not to, because I
Oh, okay.
don't want what I'm writing to be influenced or be tainted, for
Mm.
lack of a better term,
Got you. Got you.
by something that I've heard from somebody else, a
Right.
reference or
Right.
something like that. From a music standpoint,
Yeah.
I try to make sure that it's as authentic and genuine as possible.
Got you.
Um, but with the Bible, you can never go wrong. You know what I
Oh, yeah.
mean? So like, I could refer to the word all day long,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it not be corny and nobody, hey, you biting, so and so lyrics or whatever. So for me, I would have to say, hands down, like the illest lines that I've ever heard, written, read, spoken would have to be the 119th Psalm. Like that's,
Yeah.
that's just kind of where I'm at. So
There's power in it. Yeah, most definitely. Wow. Well, now you're
yeah,
gonna make
sorry
me
I
go
couldn't.
back oh no, that's, hey, your answer's your answer. You know what I'm saying? And whether it's music or whatever, and that's kind of, to me, that's kind of the beauty of it in itself, because I got to learn pretty quick that this wasn't this show wasn't going to be just about music. You
Mm,
know what I mean?
yeah.
Especially depending on, who I was talking to, and, just knowing that, you were going to get to be able to dig into not just the thoughts, but pretty much the soul of a person. You know what I mean? So yeah, shoot. Yeah, like I said, your answer is your answer, and I love that. I love that. That's really
I
dope.
appreciate
You're
that,
gonna make me go back and reread
man.
it.
And listen, hey, I'm telling you, like Psalm 119, man, it
Mhm.
is really, really dope. You have an
Yeah.
appreciation for the word, the things about the word that it brings up. Like we know, that word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path.
Right.
But when you
Right.
read all of that stuff, when David's like, Lord, unite my heart, enlarge my
Mm.
heart so that I can, take more of your words, so I can keep your precepts, like just all
Yeah.
of the different stuff about the word that's in there. To me, it really tugs on my heartstrings. Like I said, that's hands
Oh
down
man. Yeah.
my favorite space in the
I
Bible. That's
bet.
it.
I bet. Sure does. I mean, and any of it that you go back to can be used for teaching, not just for to other people, but for yourself too.
Without
And that's
question.
what makes it a big deal. Most
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. The message, like I said, the message got to hit home first,
Yeah.
before it can go outside. So,
Definitely. Definitely. Well, listen. The other thing I want to make sure that people know, so that they know how to find your music and know where to reach you. Where can they reach you on social media, and where can they get your music at?
absolutely. So my website, yieldedmusic.com, has all of my social media accesses: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can connect with me through all of those there. And then, of course, the music is on pretty much every digital outlet. So you can reach out there. And like I
Definitely.
said, man, I would love, to hear from your viewers, man, and connect and just
Yeah, man.
continue to build relationships. So,
Definitely. Definitely. Same here. And yeah, make sure you guys go out there and get Safe. That's his latest single. But he's got way more music out there that you'll just absolutely love. And I'm definitely what's a witness to. I'm a living witness for that. Most
appreciate that.
definitely. Yeah, man. Well, thanks again for your time. I really appreciate it. And honestly, if there's anything that you need from me, we could do with each other, just let me know, man.
Man, I will be honored, bro. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Most definitely. I appreciate you being on, man.
All right, man. Take care
All
and
right, man.
God
God
bless, man.
bless you. Peace.
Yep. Peace.